The morning sun rose over the busy street, casting long, soft light through the windows of the small cafe. The sound of cups clinking mixed with chatter and footsteps as people hurried in and out for their morning coffee. Among them walked a tall man in a dark suit, his expression calm yet distant, his presence drawing attention from everyone around. No one knew who he was at first, but whispers began to spread quickly that he was the billionaire who had recently opened a new technology company in the city. He moved with quiet confidence as though the world around him was merely background to his thoughts. The workers behind the counter exchanged nervous glances, unsure how to treat such an important customer. At the corner near the counter stood a young girl in a faded apron, her hair tied back with a plain ribbon, her hands slightly trembling as she wiped the counter. Her name was Hannah, and she had been working there for nearly 2 years ever since her mother had fallen. Ilhana looked up when she heard her co-worker call her name. They were teasing her again, telling her to take the order for the foreign man because she had once told them she could speak a little English. She felt her heart pound inside her chest as the laughter spread among them, but she did not want to back down. She whispered to herself that she had practiced and she could do this. The billionaire raised his eyes from the menu when he noticed her approach. She greeted him softly in Japanese, and then carefully. In English, her voice was light and uncertain, but polite and warm. The man smiled faintly, perhaps amused or perhaps curious. He could not yet decide. He asked her in English if she could recommend something from the menu. She hesitated only for a second before answering, clearly recommending a special blend coffee that had just been introduced that week. The other workers giggled behind her, one whispering that she must have memorized that line from a book Hannah pretended not to hear and kept, her focus on the man before her. She repeated his order slowly, making sure she had it right before turning to prepare it. The billionaire watched her quietly, his expression unreadable as he studied her movements. There was something about her effort that caught his attention, something humble but genuine. When she placed the cup on the counter, her hands shook slightly, but her eyes met his with quiet determination. He asked her a few more questions about the cafe, about the city, about her favorite drink. She answered each question in short, careful English sentences, her pronunciation awkward yet clear. For every answer, he gave a small nod, as if measuring not her skill, but her courage. The laughter behind the counter grew quieter. The same co-workers, who had mocked her, now watched in surprise, unable to believe she could really talk to the billionaire. They whispered among themselves that maybe she had secretly studied abroad, or maybe she had some hidden past. But Hannah heard nothing. She was focused on understanding his words, catching every sound she could. She had spent countless nights listening to English lessons through cheap earphones after long shifts at work. Her textbooks were old and half-torn, but she never gave up because she wanted a better life for her mother. The billionaire leaned forward slightly, asking where she had learned to speak. She smiled shyly and told him she learned on her own after work. He raised his eyebrows, impressed, though he said nothing for a moment. Silence filled the space between them, a quiet respect forming without words. He realized that she had no special background, no university, no expensive teacher, only persistence. A group of customers entered, breaking the stillness, and Hannah quickly moved to take their orders. The billionaire watched as she worked with quiet efficiency, switching between customers without missing a beat. He noticed how she always smiled, even when tired, how she gently helped an elderly man carry his tray. Her co-workers still whispered, but their tones had changed now. It was not mockery, but surprise. Hannah, however, did not notice she was too focused on keeping the rhythm of her work steady. When she returned to clean his table after he finished his coffee, he asked if she enjoyed her job. She paused for a moment before answering that she liked it because it helped her care for her mother. He asked where her mother was, and she said at home, resting from illness. Her voice softened, and for a second, the strength in her tone wavered, but she quickly smiled again. The billionaire nodded slowly, understanding that beneath her simple uniform there was a story of struggle and devotion. Outside the cafe, the day grew brighter, the sound of traffic louder, but inside time seemed to slow as the billionaire remained seated longer than usual. He had come looking for a personal assistant, someone to help with international work. He had interviewed many people with degrees and fluent English, but none had impressed him with sincerity. Now, watching this young girl, he felt a strange thought forming in his mind. When Hana brought him a glass of water before he left, he thanked her in Japanese. She blinked in surprise and then smiled widely, realizing he had made the effort to speak her language. The moment was small, but it felt meaningful to both. Her co-workers exchanged glances, whispering again that maybe she had somehow charmed him. But Hana paid no mind. She only felt grateful that he had treated her kindly. After he left, the cafe fell back into its normal rhythm, yet the air still carried the quiet trace of what had just happened. Hana returned to her cleaning duties, her thoughts drifting to the conversation, replaying each word to remember where she could improve. Her co-workers teased her again, but this time with softer voices, almost respectfully. They said maybe she would become famous now, or maybe the rich man would return for her. Hana laughed nervously, shaking, her head saying she was just doing her job, nothing more. Far down the street, the billionaire stepped into his car, his assistant waiting inside, asking if he had found anyone suitable for the position. He answered only that he might have seen someone. Interesting. When the car drove away, he glanced once more at the cafe sign through the rear window. He did not know her name yet, but her determination had left a mark in his thoughts. He felt something stirring an idea, perhaps a chance to reward effort instead of privilege. Back inside the cafe, Hana looked out the window and saw the car disappear into the distance. She sighed, wondering if she had made any mistakes in her English. She thought about her mother at home and how proud she would be to hear that Hana had spoken with a foreign businessman. The rest of the day passed quietly, but the feelings stayed with her. Something inside her told her that this moment was not the end, but the beginning of something far greater the next morning. The cafe opened under the same quiet sky, but Hana felt different inside. She had spent the night thinking about the man in the dark suit, the one everyone now called the billionaire. Her mother had smiled when Hana told her about him, saying maybe, "Good things happen when hearts stay kind." Hana laughed and brushed it off, thinking he would never return. Still, her mind replayed every word they had shared. At work, the air buzzed with gossip, her co-workers whispering that the billionaire might come back. They joked that Hana should wear her best apron, or maybe even makeup this time. She only smiled at them and focused on cleaning the tables, pretending not to care, though deep down her chest felt tight with hope. Every sound of the door opening made her glance up, and each time it was only another regular customer. Hours passed, and the lunch rush came and went. Then, just as the light from the window turned soft with afternoon glow, the door opened again. This time, silence swept the room because it was him. The billionaire stepped inside wearing a calm expression, his eyes scanning the cafe until they landed on Hana. She froze for a moment before bowing slightly, her heart racing faster than her thoughts. He greeted her politely in Japanese, and she could not hide her surprise. She welcomed him back and led him to a seat near the corner away from the noise. Her co-workers exchanged wide-eyed looks, whispering again, but now with curiosity rather than mockery, when Hana brought his coffee. He smiled faintly and asked in English if she could sit for a moment. Her hands trembled as she said she could not because she was working. He nodded, saying he would wait until her break, and she felt both nervous and honored at once. The rest of her shift felt endless, her mind spinning with questions about what he wanted. Finally, when her break came, she approached his table, hesitating slightly before sitting down across from him. He looked at her for a moment before asking softly if she had ever wanted to do something else besides working in the cafe. She answered slowly that she had once dreamed of studying languages and maybe teaching one day, but that dream had faded after her mother became ill. The billionaire listened quietly, his fingers tapping lightly on the table as if considering something important. He then pulled a sheet of paper from his briefcase, sliding it across to her. It was a simple business letter written in English. He asked her if she could read it aloud. She took a deep breath and began, her voice shaking at first but growing steadier as she went on. When she finished, he asked if she understood it, and she nodded, explaining the meaning in clear, simple words. He smiled slightly, saying she did well, and she felt her face warm with pride. For a moment she forgot the tiredness, the teasing, the long nights of studying alone. All she felt was the joy of being understood and respected. He told her that he admired people who worked hard without complaint, and that effort was more valuable to him than titles.